Hello, and welcome back to the Lazy Money Game. In today's episode, I will give an update on my portfolio and what has happened within the week. Next, I will go into further detail about the dividend growth investing strategy. Since we in the last episode covered 3 different investing strategies, I will only focus on the dividend growth investing, since that is what we are doing here. Next, I will look into why people are actually never getting starting with investing. And then, on a final remark, I will try and answer a question I have received from the audience about why I have actually made this channel. Let's start by looking at the portfolio. So you immediately noticed that the value is currently up around $500. So the capital gains within the week is roughly $500. And how much work did I do for that? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I'm simply just holding these stocks. And then there was this capital appreciation of around $500. Am I happy about that? Am I sad about it? Well, it's simply just that the market is currently going up. And since I have some stocks which are also going up in value, then I have gained $500. But if you take a look at my portfolio, you actually see that there's more red lines than green lines, meaning that I hold more stocks which are actually down compared to stocks which are up. But fortunately for me, I have one stock here which is up a lot, and it's quite a big holding within my portfolio. So if you were a growth investor who were only interested in seeing capital gains, then you would be really happy about seeing that the market is currently up. But since I'm doing dividend growth investing, I'm actually not putting too much emphasis into the capital gains, since I don't think that I'm capable of predicting whether the stock will go up or down in the short term. So what I really would like to put an emphasis on is the dividends, meaning what will I continue to get paid, since I think that is more reliant income that helps me achieving my goal of being financially independent. And I'm really happy to share that I have received my first dividend within the week. So if we focus on this line, Synchrony Financials, then we will see that I have actually received my first dividend payment. So just to repeat myself, if we go into the Seeking Alpha webpage, we can see the dividend amount, we can see when I needed to hold the company, and when the payout date was, meaning when I would actually receive my money. And as I pointed out last time, since I'm using a foreign broker, it usually takes a day or two. So I actually didn't receive the money into my account on the 13th, I actually received it on the 14th of February. So in order to show the magnitude of the payment, we simply focus on the line again. I have noted the dividend over here. So if we, for instance, say this value times how many shares that I actually hold, then we will receive this amount. However, since I'm using a foreign broker and are not located in the States, I will have to pay a 15% withholding tax. So we simply subtract the value, and then we will be able to find the value which will go into my account. So I was actually paid $22.91 into my account, which I can then go and reinvest. Unfortunately, I didn't look into my portfolio on Friday, so I actually didn't reinvest it. So I will have to wait until next week. And actually I will have to wait all the way until Tuesday, since it is US holiday on Monday. And I'm so happy that I have actually received a dividend, because that gives me the opportunity to share the dividends tab within the spreadsheet. So without further ado, we simply just jump in and have a look at the dividends tab. This is what is really mattering to me. This is what it's all about. Getting that dividend month over month, year over year, and hopefully at some point growing it to a level so you can actually live from it. So you don't care about the capital gain on the stock. Because if I manage to increase this number to a number which I think I can live from, then it doesn't matter whether or not the company is going up or down in value, as long as they keep paying the dividend. So when I look at this number, I look at the first part of my snowball. I really want this number to grow month over month, year over year. And how do I intend to do that? Well, since I have received this money, I can now spend it on whatever I would like to do. And what I would like to do so far is to reinvest it. And on top of that, I would actually also like to invest some of my salary, simply just to get the snowball rolling and get the number to increase. Because the more money you have invested, the easier the money comes to you. The more money I will be able to make while I'm sleeping. And I know that this is not the full value that I will be paid in February, since I have other companies which will pay out. But this is just to give you the first view of what is happening within my portfolio regarding the dividends. And of course, the coming months are zero, since I do not know it yet, and I will not include it until I have actually been paid it physically into my account. That covers the overview of the portfolio for this week. However, I actually think that there are some important points to be made here. For instance, all the companies that I hold, I actually think that I have bought them at a fair value and at a pretty good time in the market. But as you can see from column H, I'm actually holding more companies which are down in value compared to companies which are up. Meaning, you have absolutely no reassurance or guarantee that you will be right when you try to time the market. The only reason my capital gains are positive this week is because of the distribution of my wealth, meaning that I have a large stake in AppWe and a much smaller stake in Tanker Factory outlet centers. So, in the short term, you can't predict how the market will go, and that is why I think day trading is not something for me, and that is why I do the dividend growth investing strategy instead. Because the dividends will grow as long as the company keeps being profitable. So why was I so happy to be paid my first dividend? I have tried to illustrate it through the power of compounding. I will assume a yield of 4% in all three scenarios. This is a really simplified version, just to show the power of compounding. I know that the numbers will be different because there will be taxation and all sorts of things in the real world. All models are wrong, but some are useful. So, scenario number 1. We start with a small investment of 1,000. Then we will reinvest whatever we get paid in dividends, and then we will add a small saving as well of 100 every month, or 1,200 per year. So what will happen in scenario number 1 as time passes? The first year we will get paid a dividend of 88. The next year we will have a dividend of 140. And if we go all the way down 30 years from now, my initial investment of 1,000 will have turned into 73,000 due to the power of compounding from the dividends and the added savings. If we then go to scenario number 2, saying we put in a big initial investment, and from there on we will not add any more of our own savings, we will only add the dividends which will be created within the portfolio. And since we're starting with a big initial investment, we can see that the dividends are actually quite substantial. So 100,000 the first year will turn into 104. And all the way down to 30 years, the initial 100,000 would actually have turned into 324,000. But what happens if we start big and we reinvest big and we add big savings? So, scenario number 3. We are starting big, we are reinvesting our dividends, and we are adding big savings. In this case, we are adding 1,000 every month instead of 100. So we start out with a big investment of $100,000. We will add $1,000 every month. Then 30 years from now, the initial investment of $100,000 with the added savings and the added dividends will actually grow to over $1 million. And this is still with a relative conservative yield of just 4%. This is why I am so happy to receive my first dividend, and why I'm really eager to share that this is how you start the snowball. You have to have a really long time perspective, but then the snowball will start to increase. And what you can see here, if you were starting big, the dividends that you are receiving are actually quite substantial, meaning that the portfolio itself will actually add more than 4 months of savings of money you didn't have to work for, which it will simply apply to your portfolio. This is really amazing, and this is why I'm doing a dividend growth investing strategy. So why did I choose these 3 scenarios? It's also to illustrate the point that's saying, if you have no knowledge about this and you are completely new, I would suggest that you start in scenario number 1. Start with small numbers, get familiarized with this before you actually start adding serious money into it. On the other hand, scenario number 2, if you are quite wealthy and you know something about what is going on in the stock market, well, you can just start big. And then, to highlight the difference between scenario number 2 and scenario number 3, just to show how much it actually means to add more savings to the portfolio. Now, let's look at some of the reasons for why people never get started with investing. This is the questions that I have heard from people I have been talking to so far. So number 1, I don't know anything about investing, whether it's stocks, bond, real estate or crowd lending. Number 2, does it really make a difference if I invest? Number 3, how do I even get started with investing? Number 4, I have to spend so much time every day on this. Number 5, I do not like to gamble. And what I think that they're actually trying to say is they do not understand the concept of risk and reward, meaning the difference between gamble and investing. And number 6, which has been true for many, many years, investing is only for rich people. All of this leads to the question that I received from the audience. Why did I actually start this channel? To answer that question, I have tried to summarize in no particular order. So if we simply just start from the top. 1. I saw an article with 50% of the children in the age group of 14 to 15 years who did not understand the concept of interest, meaning they didn't know that it was better to receive interest than it was to pay interest. Of course, assuming interests are positive. Number 2, I volunteered to help kids with mathematics. I did some tutoring once a week, where I typically helped 2 or 3 students and did that for 40 weeks, meaning that I would be able to reach around 100 people within a year. By creating this channel, I can reach out to a much bigger audience. Number 3, I would like this knowledge to be accessible to everyone, no matter their financial situation, as long as you have access to a computer and a smartphone with some internet connection. Number 4, I want to share my passion for becoming financially independent, and I want to show people that it's actually possible with a real life example, because then it's much easier to relate to, and then hopefully more people will try and do the same. 5, helping people to overcome obstacles within investing and sharing my knowledge is more meaningful than complaining about the things I think that we should have learned in school. Or phrased differently, I would like to avoid becoming an angry old man, only complaining about how the world should have been. So instead, try and changing it. Number 6, it is now possible for almost everyone to get started without having a big amount of money saved up to begin with. As I showed in the first episode of how to get started, you can start from as little as 100 Danish kroner. Of course, it will take longer time, but it's actually possible to get started, and that is the whole point. This is no longer a rich man's game. So let's get back to the questions for why people never get started. Because within this channel, it is my goal to make it possible for people to actually get started. So to question number 1, if you do not know anything about investing, then follow this channel, because as you can see from the first 4 episodes, and now with the 5th episode, I'm trying to explain how you can invest in the stock market. So at least there's one strategy to follow there. Number 2, does it really make a difference if I invest? Hell yeah, it makes a difference, as I have just shown in this episode with the power of compounding. Number 3, how do I get started? Well, that question is quite simple to answer for me. Go to the first episode. There you can see how you actually get started with at least one broker that you can use if you're located within one of the mentioned countries. Number 4, I have to spend so much time on this every day. Unfortunately, there's no easy way around this. You will have to sit down and spend some hours in order to get this going. But when you have decided with the strategy, when you have spent the time, it will be worth the effort, most likely. Number 5, I do not like to gamble. Well, I'm trying to cover the concept of risk and reward, saying that I do not think that it is gambling if you are taking a calculated risk with your money, and if you are sufficiently conservative, meaning that you never put yourself into a position where you would have to sell the stock in order to survive. I do not consider this to be a gamble, I consider this to be an investment. And number 6, investing is only for rich people. Well, that is simply no longer true. So that is also an easy question to answer at this point in time. So that concludes yet another episode of the Lazy Money Game. So remember to like and subscribe, and always leave a comment and ask questions in order for me to provide more valuable content for you in the future. That's it for now. Bye!